I won't do that.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Experiencing Loss and the Role of Community. My name is Courtney Larson. I'm the director of ClickPro. This is hosted by ClickPro Photographers. And if you want to know more about the ClickPro community, you can visit clickprophotographers.com. And I get to introduce our 3 other hosts here. And I'm going to go through and just read their little bios of what they say about themselves. And I'll also link their daily project, which is just their images, a collection of their images for you guys. But first up, we have Aubrey Barr. Aubrey lives just north of Tampa. Hey, Aubrey. She moved there 13 years ago from Alaska to marry her husband. Aww. After many years of infertility, they made an incredible little lady through in vitro fertilization and a host of amazing doctors. This little girl lights up their world as inspiration of Aubrey's photography and writing. Aubrey has ran a massage therapy business for the last 11 years. I did not even know that about you, where she is certified in many modalities, including prenatal massage. This was the start of her love of birth photography. And in her spare time, she spends time with her family, camping, hiking, traveling, and CrossFit. Woohoo! So I'm going to link your daily project if anybody wants to check out more of Aubrey's work or just even view it while you're watching this. And then Catherine Johnson. Hi, Catherine. Catherine has long loved photography, but it wasn't until 2016 that she got her first DSLR and began digging in and really learning to shoot. In addition to documenting the lives of her 2 tinies, she tries to capture authentic connection, emotion, and moments for her clients. When she's not behind the lens, she's working to adjust to a new life as a stay and work at home mom with her 2 little miracles. She also loves Jesus, her hubby Mark, listening to podcasts and music, drinking hot tea, cooking, and Harry Potter. Sweet. Yeah. Catherine, tell me your favorite podcast.
Oh, all-time favorite is probably Christy Nockels, The Glorious in the Mundane.
Glorious in the Mundane. I'm going to check that out. And then there's Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Hey.
Lisa is married to her husband, Roger, for almost 21 years. Lisa, is that number
It's
gone up?
23 now.
I thought so. Right, we usually write these right when we first joined Daily Project. Okay, almost 23 years, and she has 4 beautiful children between them and 2 completely adorable grandsons. More grandchildren or just 2 still?
Just still 2, yeah.
Okay. She's the owner of Little Lou Photography and has been in business and specializing in newborn, maternity, and children's photography since 2011. She's also a labor and delivery nurse for the last 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And continues to work in that field as well as on the per diem basis. She's passionate about families and the amazing and miraculous blessings of bringing new life in the world. And she's also a marathon runner and loves to travel. Ooh. Lisa, top place you've visited. What's your favorite place you've traveled to?
Oh, man. Probably Kenya and Sri Lanka are probably my top.
Oh, yes. Oh. We lost Aubrey. Aubrey, can you still hear us?
I am still here, I think.
Okay. We just lost your video, but as long as you can still hear us, hopefully you'll come back.
Oh, okay.
We just have a little circle face.
Yeah. I see Lisa as a circle face.
Oh, really? Oh, that's weird. It might just be like all 4 different connections all coming at once. Maybe it's like freaking out. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Oh, yep.
Okay, so we are hosting this in honor of Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day, which is October 15th of every year. And I think all 4 of us, especially these 3 ladies, just really believe in having a conversation around this, especially as a community of women. ClickPro Photographers is all women. We have over 1,000 female members. And so just opening up a dialogue about what this day means to us personally, but then also how we can create a community and that really supports each other, especially since we're all photographers and may come in contact with clients that experience loss and what that means to them and for us honoring their experiences and walking with them through it. So the first question I have for you ladies is, what does this day mean to you? What is pregnancy and infant loss? And just any slice of your story you guys want to share or experiences. So we'll go. Catherine, are you at the top right on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go top right, bottom left.
Okay, because she's on my top left, so just tell me when it's my turn.
Okay, Catherine, Lisa, Aubrey. That's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Okay, so my turn.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is really cool about this day is that it gives families a day where they feel the freedom when they might not otherwise to say, hey, everybody, remember my babies that I don't have anymore. And other children that are living, they have birthdays where they're there and there's a party and people come. And when you have a child that is no longer alive, sometimes I think it can be hard to feel the freedom to celebrate that life. So I love that day for that. I have 3 babies in heaven from miscarriage. And I actually had a family member who his little boy was going to be born like right around October 15th. We were like at the hospital on October 15th. And I remember just thinking, please, like, let him be born on the 16th, because for me, I felt kind of like that was the day that I had to celebrate my kids. And this was my little nephew who was born on October 16th. And I don't know, it just, that day was so special to me that I had that day for them. And so I was really hoping that he would be born the next day, and he was. But I just love that it gives us a moment to pause and remind everybody, because we're always thinking about it, but to remind other people about those lives that are no longer with us. So
That's a good point.
Love that.
Thank you, Catherine.
Okay, my turn, I guess. So I lost my baby Alex in 1991, so she would be 28 years old, so it's been a long time. But her loss actually changed my whole trajectory of my life. So I had a labor nurse deliver who, see, I still get emotional 28 years later, a labor nurse who took care of me while I was in labor, and the care she gave me just was phenomenal. And she didn't say anything in particular. I don't remember a single thing she said, but she held my hand. Sorry, it's an emotional topic. Held my hand as she sat beside me, and walking through a loss, you don't know what to do. Like someone would have told me to take pictures of my baby, I would have thought that was so weird. If she would have, people would have told me things to do, I would have just thought they were weird. So having somebody walk alongside you and through that path, I think is super important. And so I actually ended up becoming a labor nurse after that. And I've been one for 20 years. And I launched our hospital bereavement program. So we had a parent support group that I started, and it's been, 2005 to 2015, I was the coordinator. I trained nurses and doctors into how to care for patients, both in the office and in the hospital setting. And I also help organize our annual walk. So we just had our walk last weekend, so it's not necessarily on the 15th, but it's every October, and it's our 29th year. So we have like a balloon release, family events. And so to me, it's, I don't always think about it every day or all the time during the year, but it's the one time a year I can really honor her and remember her, with other people. And I think it's really important to not feel like you're alone. I think walking that bereavement path, you feel it's lonely and you feel like you're the only one. And to be among people who have felt the same emotions as you and walk the same path is really, it's really healing. And it's not even a sad event, really. Like, it's just a really joyful event because you get to remember in a good way. Sorry if I'm making other people cry.
Sorry.
Oh,
it is like the 1 month, and I guess that's probably why I'm so emotional today, because we just had it last weekend. And, every year we get up and say our babies' names, and it was just like this huge turnout. And I thought, okay, this year I'm not going to cry when I say my baby's name.
Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa, I'm with you. I actually, before we started, went and grabbed my tissues. Okay. So yeah, October 15th, I kind of drew the short end of the stick because I got married on October 15th, almost 14 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So that part makes me kind of but anyway, I had no idea that it would have a different meaning to me in the years to come. So it's kind of funny that you asked what that day means, because every year I'm like, okay, are we going to celebrate our anniversary, or are we going to be like celebrating babies? Yeah. So anyway, Dave and I were married for, I want to say 5 years when we started to try to have kids, and there was a lot of issues. I didn't know what the problem was, but I was very much into natural health, as I still am. And I did a lot, pretty much any weird thing you can think of to try and get pregnant. Mm-hmm. I did it. Yeah, there was a lot of odd stuff going on, but Dave was a trooper. Eventually, after a couple years of not being able to conceive, we got pregnant. And I knew something was odd about it, but I wasn't expecting that we would have a baby perfectly healthy in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
And that was in itself really hard because we had to decide to have surgery. Okay. You guys, I don't cry about this every day. I'm like really feeling okay now, but we had to decide to have surgery and take that baby out. But my tube burst before, literally like 10 minutes before surgery. And so I lost that tube. And then luckily we got pregnant a couple more times, but those were miscarriages. And the next one was another ectopic in the other fallopian tube. Wow. So I lost that tube. And it was pretty hard because for a lot of people on here too, if you watch this later, even now, or these ladies, you know that there's always a point where you're like, wait a second, should we just give up? Like, just give up on this idea, on this dream? You know, maybe that's not for us. Mm-hmm. And I know Dave definitely felt like we should give up, but I couldn't help myself. So we did IVF, and I asked Aspen. She had a twin that we lost miscarriage when she was I want to say we were like 7 weeks at gestation. So we lost another baby that way. And then a few years later, we decided to do IVF again, and that ended in a miscarriage. So we are officially done. Yeah. In case anybody asks. Yeah, but it's so nice to have a day where it's okay for everybody to just say, hey, I lost somebody and you never met them, but to me, they mattered. Mm-hmm. Okay. I laugh and cry at the same time. It's really cool. Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Courtney.
Okay. I was just going to share a piece of my story. Me and my husband, when we were dating, I was diagnosed with endometriosis. Had to go to the emergency room from work and had really severe endometriosis. So had several surgeries to remove a lot of that scar tissue, and was given a 30% chance of conceiving and a 10% chance of carrying to term. At the time when we were dating and engaged, or actually we were dating, I told Eric I never wanted kids. I never saw myself with kids ever. And then got that diagnosis. And at the same time, we were in this this church group. It was like a marriage group because we were engaged then. So we were in this marriage group where like these people had been married for like 40 plus years, stood up and kind of shared their struggles and their kind of marriage story. And there was this one couple that shared their marriage story, and it was a story of loss and really struggling to conceive. And she was like, you know, we thought we would travel the world and have fun and kind of live our life for like 10 years, and then we would start having kids. And when that finally rolled around 10 years later and they tried to have kids, they realized that it was going to be a struggle, and they had several losses. She also had endometriosis, several losses. They do now have 2 beautiful children. But she was like, I would have given up all of the fun and the travel and the everything if it had meant starting that journey early. And so when we were just engaged, I turned to Eric and I was like, you know what? Like, I want to start the journey now because I knew it was going to be really hard. Not sorry. I'm not sorry. It hurts so much because it's such a huge loss, right? We shouldn't be sorry over our tears. At least I don't want to be sorry over my tears. So we're very grateful for the 3 beautiful children we have. I'm very grateful for endometriosis. The crazy thing about it is that pregnancy actually heals you in a lot of ways. So we did lose 2 before we had our son Britton, but beautifully we had 2 more after him as well. So 3 kids, but a few losses in the early time. So thank you, ladies, so much for being here. Thank you for sharing slices of your story. I know when I was starting out with endometriosis and getting that diagnosis, I did not realize how common our stories are. I feel like, especially with miscarriage, my story, it was like this thing that wasn't talked about, at least 10 years ago. It wasn't talked about until it was talked about, right? Until you experience it. And my mom is saying, oh yeah, I had a miscarriage. And I'm like, 30 years later, I'm 30 years old and you've never told me this, because it was just this thing that isn't talked about. And I just think having this conversation is so important for us to talk and create a community around it. So thank you, ladies. So the question I have is, how can there be community in it? How can we find the community? And have you guys found the importance of community, maybe with your friends, family, other women who have walked through this? I know a few of you, Catherine and Lisa, have obviously had organizations or groups come out of your experiences. But what does community mean to you guys within pregnancy and infant loss?
Okay, so I'll start. A little bit back up, when we started trying to have children, we got pregnant pretty quickly. And that first pregnancy, we had went in for an ultrasound around 10 weeks and there was no heartbeat. And so we had a D&C following that. We tried to get pregnant again and again. Within a few months, we were pregnant, and that was an early miscarriage. And then a third time shortly after that, we had another loss. So we had 3 within about 11 months. And so then at that point, we were like, okay, we need to stop and figure out what is causing this. And so I did all the testing, and the only thing they could find was I have a blood clotting disorder called MTHFR. So then it was, okay, try again, take baby aspirin, take folate, and then we couldn't get pregnant. So after 6 months of trying unsuccessfully, we started fertility treatment, and we did 3 cycles of IUI that were unsuccessful, and a 4th that we had to cancel. So then we went to a new doctor in another state and had another, basically a test done. And anyway, shortly after that, I was pregnant with what was our rainbow baby, which was Nora. And so, so just timeline, our first miscarriage was in April of 2013, and then Nora was born in March of 2016. So that's kind of a picture. So community, yeah. So after our first loss, I remember reaching out to a friend who I knew had experienced it, and just having someone who was willing to talk to me about all of it, I mean, there's the physical part, there's the emotional part, and just somebody that's to say this is normal and you are not alone. And it's so easy for us to think we are the only person. No one has experienced this. The thoughts that I'm thinking are crazy, and just not in your emotions, especially with, pregnancy, when you have a loss, you still have postpartum hormones. You still have all of those things. You just don't have a baby, And so you have that in addition to your emotions and your physical everything. And so having people it was crucial to feeling pain and just knowing kind of next steps. So after our first loss, my husband and I started at the time through our church, a ministry called Hannah's Hope. And we have boxes that we send to families when they have miscarriage, stillbirth, early infant death. And they have items in the boxes that help people work through their grief in a proactive way. So there's a book about grieving a child. There's a little stuffed animal, gives them something to hold, and an ornament with their baby's name on it. So there's just various tangible things for families to have. So that is something that, as far as community, a lot of people don't know what they can do, you know, and that gives people, instead of like sending a card or flowers, or they can send a box. So that gives them that community piece. But I will say, after our second loss, I remember I was just in a really dark place. And I remember I was seeing a counselor who specialized in pregnancy loss and fertility. And I remember just her talking to me and saying, you know, like, I think you might need to consider getting on some medication. And I remember that at that point kind of feeling like that was a little bit of a wake up call for me. And medication is wonderful when needed. I don't mean anything like that. But I just realized, okay, like I really need some help. I need to kind of do something about this. And I was able in the time through help to kind of snap out of it, and didn't but I remember like around that time I was at work and they called and said, like, you have a package at the guard's desk. And I remember, this is going to make me emotional, going and it was flowers and a card and cookies. And I opened the card and it was our whole like church small group had like all signed it. So it was like in a time that I felt very alone. Like I just felt so, I don't know, kind of like you feel like sometimes nobody cares. And I don't mean that negative people, but you just kind of think like, does God care? Is anybody even like aware of what's happening? And then to just see like all of these people, and you know, where they just passed a card around, and so for them it wasn't a huge thing necessarily, but to just know that like people cared, and people, even though I didn't feel that way, like I was not alone. And so for me, there have been times all throughout where things like that happen, where someone would remember a baby's due date, or October 15th, or, you know, just check in. And those things just remind you that like we're not alone. And I just feel like community is like just essential in this. So, yeah.
Thanks, Catherine.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, I think community is super important. And so my loss was in 91, so there wasn't a lot. Like there's always more, but you know, I didn't. At my hospital, we give out care packages like you talked about. We take pictures and do ceramic footprints and give them as much as they can have to go home, because you leave the hospital, you don't have anything. You're being willed out without your baby, and it's really hard. And like Catherine said, you do feel so alone. And when I had my loss, I was young and naive, and I had 2 children, and I just thought, I didn't know anybody. I knew one person who had a full-term stillborn, but it just was not in my thoughts that I could lose a baby after that first trimester. And so it was just, it was hard to take care of kids and try to grieve. And, you know, I have not met a mother yet who hasn't blamed herself, who hasn't felt guilty in some way. And felt like maybe they did something wrong, questioned everything they did. And being able to talk that out with people who have felt those same things, when you feel like you're crazy, because you do, there's times you feel like you're crazy. And, you know, you go to sleep thinking about it, you wake up thinking about it. And I just think you really can't understand unless you've experienced loss. And it doesn't have to be an infant loss, any loss. Really, until you felt it, it's hard to understand. And I think it's hard for people to see who haven't had a loss. Like they feel like they want to fix you, and they don't know what to say. In fact, I've always told my patients, like, just be prepared, because the people who are going to say the most hurtful things are the people that love you the most. And it's because they feel like it's hard for them to see you hurt. And so they feel like they have to say something, and they say the wrong thing usually, you know. And we can talk about things not to say.
Yes.
So being able to just be in front of people and vent. And, you know, and the cool thing now is that there's so many online resources, like so many grief support groups that you can join, and that are specific to you, like trisomies and miscarriage, and it gives you an outlet, and it's important. I think people who grieve alone, their grief process is sometimes longer or complicated, and to not be afraid to say I need help, and if it is medications, it's medications, and not to be ashamed of that. Yeah, and I like the people I've met it through my support group and through grief have gone on to be lifelong friends. So it's like a club you never want to belong to. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay. When I first realized that we were having trouble conceiving, I went online and kind of did a Google search. This was like 2009, probably 10 years ago. And I found a group that was very active at the time in forums called Fertility Friend. And there I was able to learn a lot about just the cycle and, what days are good to get pregnant. I mean, it's really not that black and white, but you learn how your body is acting, and you learn from other people. I learned everything from other people, and I had a place to chart. So I would get up every morning and try not to move at all and grab my thermometer, like take my temperature so I could take my body temperature. I mean, I knew everything that was going on in my body. It was very empowering. But obviously it didn't solve all my problems, but having that community there to teach me and to kind of coach me through. And it was because of that I was able to recognize that there was a problem with my first pregnancy. I knew that, well, I don't want to get too much into it, but I knew when I started, like I spotted when I shouldn't be, and I was like, wait, what's going on here? And I was able to realize that I needed medical attention pretty early. So it was just like having that knowledge and having that group of women that, I mean, a lot of them suffered even worse than I had, and it was nice because when I first had my miscarriage, the first ectopic, I already knew what people were going to say to me, and they said it. It was like, oh my gosh, people that would on the forum say, never say this to someone. And it was already there. And so it was kind of useful because I could be like, okay, they just don't understand. They don't understand what I'm going through, and it's not for them, which is fine. You know what? If you don't understand why you can't say certain things to people, then that's a blessing. To deal with it. So I try to be kind to those people. But anyway, it was nice to have that group. And actually it was around the time when Facebook started getting more popular. And so a bunch of us moved from that group onto Facebook, and we're still friends. So I have there's a group of 80 of us that were all due February 2012. Now, some of them had babies in January or March, but we were all due in that time, and we are still in contact. And I've met with them. I've stayed at some of their houses and, met up with them where they live. And it's actually having that online community these days is really beneficial, So that's how I feel about community. I know it was days when other people didn't understand me. Those ladies did, and that was unbelievably important to me. So
thank you. So talking about what people shouldn't say, really we want this webinar for those that have experienced loss, so they can obviously, they're going to obviously connect with our stories, but the people that are watching, the photographers that are watching that have not experienced loss and don't know what to do or where to go or what to say, let's create a list for them. Things that people maybe said to you that were extremely helpful, whatever that is, something they did or said, and then the things that should not be said. I think it's really important for people to know that not be said list. So I don't know if you guys want to share some things that have helped or hurt you.
So many things. Where to start? I think, first of all, as far as never say, if it starts with the words "at least," don't say it. Or you have another baby, or at least you can get pregnant. It happened early. Don't. If it's at least, don't say it.
Yeah.
That's one. This is hard because every person is different. So some things may affect a person differently than others. So I think that overall the biggest thing is to try to anticipate and try to be just very sensitive. when I say anticipate, like think through like things like Mother's Day or holidays or a baby shower, things that are celebratory events for some people are very, very difficult for other people. So if you have a friend that you know has experienced a pregnancy loss or you know, a type of loss like that, like maybe still invite them to the baby shower, but maybe say, hey, I know you're going through a really hard time right now, and I want you to know you're invited, but I do not expect you to come. I know that may be really difficult for you. You know, just extending that, like, I see you, I understand, and just lots of just grace for that person, you know. I think too, remembering those dates that are important and saying, hey, I know today is your due date. How are you doing? You know, and a lot of intentionality. If you're really wanting to support someone and get down with them, like and maybe you put in your phone, like so-and-so's due date in a week before, so you can send a card or send flowers. I think as far as not saying, adoption is a difficult one, like saying, oh, are you guys going to adopt? Or, you know, like, and we have an adopted daughter who's a grown-up, and my husband is adopted. I love adoption, but that's not always, people want to put that as like a Band-Aid, you know. I think sometimes as you're talking about people wanting to fix a problem or, you know, offering unsolicited medical advice, things like that. I think that it's generally better to ask questions and listen than it is to just talk. And saying, you know, how are you today? Because a person may be fine in the morning and then in the afternoon they're not. You know, it's day by day, but it's also minute by minute, especially in those early stages of grief when you were just under that dark cloud. So I think regularly checking in, and then also I think it's important to be tangible in what you offer, not, hey, if there's anything I can do, let me know. But hey, I would love to take your kids for you so you could have some time, or you and your husband can go and talk. Like, when would be a good day for me to take them to the park? Or what day this week can I bring you a meal? You know, like thinking through and offering something like that, or giving them the option of, you know, what can I do very specifically? So let me think if there's anything else. There's so many things, but I think that's things. I think the biggest thing is being sensitive. And then also on the part of the person who has experienced the loss, I have learned a lot about extending grace to other people, because most of the time, the people that say the things they shouldn't, they are well-intentioned, and they, like you were saying, they don't know. You cannot know unless you've experienced it. So I have to be like, you know what? Great, like grace on them, because they don't know. They love me. They're trying to help. They're doing the best they can. So it kind of goes both ways a little bit, but
Thanks, Catherine.
Okay, so I guess my thing is there are no magic words. Like, I feel like people feel like they have to say something, and you don't necessarily have to say anything. Sometimes just, hey, I'm here for you if you need to talk, or how are you doing today? And actually giving them the pause and the space to say it. And I like Catherine, like at least, like those were the most hurtful to me. Like, at least you can have a baby, at least you're young, at least you have 2 kids. And those were hurtful. Or, you know, your baby's in a better place. That was the other thing, because to say that to a mom, the best place in their mind is with them. So how could that be a better place? So, and just like taking into account their stories, and like the things I remember the most are the people who were actually there. So and stood with me and brought me meals and took my kids, like Catherine said, and just offering the things, like she said, without, you know, what can I do? Because a lot of times in those first few weeks and months, your whole thought process is just mush. Like, you're asked a question to try to process that and think about what you need is a lot. So just to come up with, like Catherine said, hey, can I bring you a meal on Wednesday? Or, hey, just want a cup of coffee? And then just listening. And if they need to tell their story 20 times, listen to it 20 times, because sometimes they just need to say it. Just being more of a listener than a sayer, I think, is big.
Yeah.
So.
I was going to say that for sure you don't always have to say something. I mean, like you guys mentioned, just being there, I mean, that's huge. We always remember that. We always remember when someone brought us a meal when we needed it, and you could just say, hey, here you go. I'm keeping it simple. I really agree with everything you guys have said so far. I just wanted to add one thing that can be pretty hurtful is like hiding pregnancies. I've had a lot of friends in the past who would just not tell me they're pregnant, but they would tell everybody else.
Oh yeah.
Like that didn't help anything. So, I get that they're coming from a place of, oh, that'll hurt them, but you can't hide it forever. And so it's kind of disrespectful to not allow us to grieve or not allow us to be happy for you, because we are happy for you. It just looks different for us, and people just misunderstand that. So that's just being conscious. I mean, it's common sense to not keep things like that from people. The other thing going along with holidays, Catherine talked about, don't invite somebody that is having struggles with infertility or losses to a surprise baby shower. That's happened like, I want to say once, but it's happened more than once.
Oh my goodness.
Don't do that. Why would you do that ever? I'm just saying. I mean, I wasn't mad, but it was a pretty hard day.
Yeah.
So it's just being conscious. Just think it through. Just, say, you know what? I don't think that that's a good idea for them. Maybe I'll just invite them, but tell them, hey, by the way, I'm just telling you, but we are pregnant, So yeah. And then the other thing is, I'm a religious person, and part of the stuff that has really affected me getting through this kind of trial in my life is knowing that I'll get to see my babies again. And that's just a belief that I have. Nobody else has to believe that. But at the same time, I didn't need people to tell me that. Yeah. I had to come to that understanding in my life by myself or with my husband, but I didn't need you to tell me, if I'm having a bad day, that's what you believe, and that you knew I believe that, and you have to remind me. It's just not, it's not necessary, So yeah, I think just being there for people, just saying, hey, I know you're hurting. I know you're hurting. I can tell. And I just want you to know that you can call me or you can text me or, I'm here for you. And that's really huge. My siblings are extra good at that. They're I know you're hurting, so I'm here for you. So yeah, I didn't have as much because you guys took them. So
oh, sorry. Can I tag on things? As far as the pregnancy announcement thing, I think that's a really good one because so many people don't know what to do, and I think it's good to involve the spouse as well. My siblings and I are similar age, and my brother had a baby was pregnant when we were in the middle of all of this, and he asked my husband when it would be a good time to tell me, and so so that I was home, I wouldn't be surprised. He said I preferred to find out via text. Everyone's going to be different, but that way I could process that by myself and have an appropriate response when I saw them. And so he asked my husband, is now a good time? And I just thought that was very just aware of him to think about me and not making it a big thing, a surprise or in public, and then to deal with all of these emotions. Of course, thrilled my brother was pregnant, but it was also, just reminded me of what we didn't have. So I think if you're not sure how to handle something like that, ask the person's spouse and see what would be best for that individual situation. And then, the other thing was, I think it's okay to tell the person, I don't really know what to say. That's okay. Hey, I don't know. I have not been through this. I don't know what to say and what not to say. So but what can I do kind of thing? Just owning that. I think that's fine. And I think that helps just, helps you be vulnerable and the other person understand that you really are trying, even though you're not really sure. So,
yeah.
Totally.
Good points. So moving on into how this relates to photography. But what does this mean for the photography world? Have you guys done any kind of personal projects surrounding your experience? Or have you walked through this with a client, and what does that look like? walking this through with a client. So Lisa, I know obviously you have a very unique perspective as well in your daily work, but yeah, just have you guys found healing through photography personally and then larger with clients? Catherine, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll start. So I was not into photography yet when all of this happened. So I did some like with my iPhone.
Yeah.
So like we had a memory garden in our backyard for our babies, and I had my husband take a picture of me in the garden, you know. So there was that aspect. I'm doing a loop with some Click Pros on this coming Tuesday.
Yay!
I've been having a hard time because it's, well, you know, of course you want it to be done with excellence, and it's kind of a lot to how do you honor that life and your story, that experience in a photo, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like you don't want to put so much pressure on it that you just don't do it, but it's big, you know? So I've just really been thinking about that and how to do that. When Nora was born, we had studio newborn pictures done, and we had told the photographer a little bit about her story. And when we got the pictures back, she had changed one of the backdrops to where it was a rainbow. And for people who aren't familiar, a rainbow baby is baby born after pregnancy loss. And so I was totally a surprise, but she had made this beautiful cloth backdrop, a rainbow colors with her. And that was really like the most special picture to me. We put that on her announcement, and that was just really, really and then we have people with Hannah's Hope. I mentioned there's a lamb that we put in the boxes, and I have had so many families include that lamb that represents kind of their baby that they lost in their pregnancy announcement pictures, or along with their subsequent live birth, they'll include that. And so it's just really neat to see how people take things that remind them or represent the baby that they lost and put them in pictures. And I just think that's really beautiful. So.
Okay, so of course in my role at the hospital, like we took pictures of all the babies, and we would just tell families, you know, we just take them whether you want them or not. We put the memory card in your box, and you can look at them later, but at least you have them. And you know, I wasn't a professional photographer until 2011, so then I realized how lame they were that we took, you know. So then I became more passionate about just making sure, like, we used professional photographers whenever possible. So we used Now and Lay Me Down to Sleep, which is available in most major cities, and it's just photographers that volunteer their time to document stillborns and usually NICU babies. And then if no one else was available, also our Bella Baby, which is 360 in some cities. Their photographers will sometimes come and do pictures, but just like encouraging families the importance of taking those pictures and not being ashamed or afraid to, and just how important having images is in the grief process. And then through our parent support group, I have met a lot of families and then just gone on to be their friend. And so there's been a couple of stories I did. One's called Landon's Story, and it's a video project of their loss and how it affected their faith and their family. And so I've shared that. And then each year for our Walk to Remember, I donate a full family or newborn package. And that has also connected me with families where I've been able to tell more of their stories. And I think it's, you know, people are afraid their babies are going to be forgotten, you know, as big. And so being able to help them tell that story or honor their babies is something I think that we can do in the photography community in a beautiful way. So just being aware of how to connect with those families, whether through charity programs or volunteering your time, can help you do that. And it's something that means a lot to families. So
yeah. Thank you.
I really appreciate it, Lisa. So I wasn't in photography when I had my losses, but when Aspen was 10 months old, I was experiencing a lot of postpartum anxiety, which is even more common if you suffer with infertility. So that was really difficult, and we were also experiencing a lot of marriage problems. And I remember I was just like, I would look at her and I'd be like, holy cow, she looks like a different person today than she did yesterday. I'm like, it was making me more anxious to see that she was growing up so fast. And, you know, the whole time I knew there was a good possibility that this was going to be our only child. And I just said, you know what? That's it. I'm sick of it. I'm like, I'm going to buy a camera and I'm going to learn how to use it. And I'm going to document like every day I can with this kid. And that poor child has like a billion photos of her. But I really just pushed myself to try and accept this horrible, like, you know, trauma that we've been dealt and just try to make something good out of it. And that's what photography has always been for me. And even when I'm feeling run down, I get out my camera because it's always been that solace that I get. So that's how I got started in photography. I also, she had mentioned in my in the beginning, in my introduction, I have been doing massage for years, and so I have been certified in prenatal massage therapy since day one because I loved it. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And so I was attending births as a massage therapist. And clearly, in the midst of infertility, I stopped doing that. I just gave up on that. I'm like, yeah, it's not really working for me right now. And so I took a few years off. And then when I became, you know, a photographer and, you know, got better at it and was feeling more confident, I've been able to now attend births again as a photographer. And I love it. I just think it's so amazing. And, you know, it's proof to me that we can encounter these huge traumas in our life and we can get better and we can do better and we can feel better. So yeah, there it is.
I touching on what you guys all said, I think like for the photographer that's watching, I think Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep is a really amazing resource that you could utilize. If you're looking for a way to take your gifts and be able to give them to these families, that's amazing. I know I have volunteered through them and connected with families in that way. And it's difficult as it is to be the person taking the photos. We know that like we have a really unique gift. And I think photography, like you said, Lisa, with the clients that you serve as labor and delivery nurse, like those photos, even if they don't care about them in the moment, can be really life-changing for a woman who's experienced loss. So if you want to look into Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, I'm a huge advocate for that avenue for us as photographers. And there was something else that you guys said that, yeah, I definitely remembering obviously the child and just saying their name. You know, if they've named their baby, saying the name and even just reminding moms that you know their baby's name, I think can be really important. Yeah, but I love that you guys are doing a loop. I don't know if you Aubrey, you posted about the loop, right? Within the group.
We got, I don't know, maybe 15 people. So that's pretty substantial. I mean, there's a lot of us out there. So we've got to come together. There's nothing else to do.
Completely. Is there any other questions that we had? How can we walk through this with clients is a big thing. I know like if you're a newborn photographer or a birth photographer, it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when you have to walk through this with clients. You know, my first experience was I was scheduled to photograph a birth and it ended up in a loss. And so instead of coming to the hospital to document labor and delivery, I was documenting baby William after he passed. So I think like watching a webinar like this or getting resources or understanding what's out there and how to serve your clients, because again, newborn delivery, even if you're a maternity photographer, these stories are not uncommon, unfortunately. So like just get prepared. You know, what can you say? What can you do? And obviously photography, the gift that we all hold is absolutely life-changing for those women and men, the fathers and mothers. So just being available, I think is awesome. But I want to thank you guys. Definitely, I want to make sure you guys can give resources that you know, Hannah's Hope, resources. Anybody watching this webinar, I want to make sure that you guys all get the resources these women know about, follow-ups for photographers, or if you have experienced loss. So why don't you guys throw out those so I can make sure that we have them on screen, and then we can also follow up. And then any other last thoughts you guys have about just anything that comes to mind about the role of community or photography, or what you think our viewers need to hear. So
one of the resources that I think is really great is a group called MEND. It's Mommies Enduring Neonatal Death. And MEND has chapters across the United States, and they meet generally once a month, and it's a support group. And my husband and I were very active in MEND in the Tulsa, Oklahoma chapter for a long time. And that's something that's really helpful, especially in that community piece, because you're talking only with people who have had that loss. And so you're all walking through that together. MEND, and then you guys talked about like the social media. There are so many groups online. And there's Still Standing is a loss group, and they have great articles and things. So that's one. And then on our Hannah's Hope page, I do have a page for resources, and so it has a list of books, a list of songs, a little like blog I wrote about like how to support somebody after a loss. So there's a whole kind of page there for that. But other than that, I think, also it's October 15th is coming up, and like, you can, even if you haven't had a loss, like you can still light a candle, because it's, I think 7 o'clock is the time. And it's supposed to be a wave of light. So every time zone at 7, there's lights that all around the world for babies lost. And you can light a candle in memory of a friend or loved one's baby. It doesn't have to be for yours. And do a post about that on social media to just raise awareness, I think is a beautiful way to just remind people that you remember. So, thank you.
Awesome.
All right, and then my resources are just like I already talked about. Now Lay Me Down to Sleep. And then Resolve Through Sharing is the hospital program that most hospitals use nationwide, and for parent support groups. So if you live in a major city, more than likely there will be a parent support group through them or some kind of program. And then just the Facebook pages and whatnot. I do want to say just one more thing about, don't forget about the dads.
Yeah.
So, we always focus on the mom. See, I get emotional because the dads get forgotten. They're like trying to fix everything behind the scenes and keep all the emotions in check. So this month, and the grandmas who have never talked about their loss. So Yep.
Thank you, Lisa, for that reminder, for sure.
That's a really good reminder. I just want to close with just letting you guys know, if there's somebody out there that is suffering with some of these issues right now, it feels like you're so alone, and just know that you're not alone, that there's so many of us out there. And if you can't reach out to a big group, or if you don't feel like you want to join one of these meetings, reach out to people that you know that have experienced it, and maybe even help out someone who is in the trenches. Because I know for me, I was able to help a very dear friend of mine that ended up with the same issues, but years later. And it was such a healing thing for me. And for her, I mean, she tells me all the time that it meant the world to her. So even if it's not like a big group, but just like one-on-one, if you know someone that is suffering and you feel like, hey, I at least can listen, then do it. That's for you and for them, it's really beneficial. So.
And for any Click Pros, obviously, we want our Facebook page, we want our community to be, my heart is, I want it to be a real community. I don't just want to be sharing the beautiful golden, I want us to actually do life together and feel like we can do life together. So obviously, Aubrey, you posting about the loop and things like that, where we can come together and collectively share our experiences, just makes our community even stronger. So I want to thank you for getting everybody together on that, and also doing life, really doing life together within Click Pro. So thank you, ladies, so much for joining this roundtable. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your amazing wisdom. I hope it helps any viewer, I mean, any single woman that's watching this or man that watches this and gets some wisdom from you guys. It's a home run. So yeah, awesome. And I'll send a follow-up email, but I hope you guys have a great, great day. And obviously we'll be thinking of each of you on October 15th. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.